Welcome to the meeting of the presidential electors for the state of Georgia for the 2024 election.
This week, Georgia Republicans gathered in the Senate chamber of the state capitol.
Your names, as we conduct this vote today, will be etched in the annals of American history forever.
Georgia GOP Chairman Josh McCoon presided from the front with the Georgia state seal carved on the wood panel behind him.
This will go to the National Archives. It will be part of our country's story for as long as there is a United States of America.
4 years ago, this was the spot 16 Georgia Democrats gathered to cast the state's electoral votes for Joe Biden. A floor below, 16 Republicans also met that day.
Behind closed doors, they signed on to an alternative slate of electors for Donald Trump, an act that's still reverberating today in court and in the public square.
This year, the occasion was less eventful.
Jason Thompson, Carl Blackburn, Denise Burns.
After a tumultuous campaign year where the sitting president dropped out of the race and a former president survived an assassin's bullet, 2024 is nearing its end.
It is unanimous, 16 votes for the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
On this week's episode, we take stock of the year in Georgia politics,
including a court decision just this week removing Fulton DA Fani Willis from the Georgia election interference case.
We'll also look ahead to 2025 and test our editor's knowledge of the news in 2024 with a plugged-in game show. I'm WABE politics reporter Raul Bally.
I'm WABE politics reporter Sam Greenglass, and this is Plugged In, a WABE politics podcast.
All right, it's the last episode of 2024, Sam. We're going to spend some time reflecting on the year that was and what may be on tap for 2025. And to do that, we're bringing in a special guest, plugged-in producer Brendan Rivers. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on again. So I wanted to start out by asking you both to tell me about a news story that you covered that wasn't really on your radar at the start of the year, but ended up being a really big deal. So I'm going to ask you to pick stories that aren't obvious bombshells, like President Biden dropping his re-election bid or President-elect Trump surviving an assassination attempt.
Okay, so I'm actually going to pick two, Brendan and Raul. My first is all of the drama around the Georgia State Election Board. Throughout this year, this board, its members have changed over. Some of the more mainstream Republicans ended up being replaced by more activist members who got involved in elections, really driven by these claims of widespread election fraud. And over the course of this year, headed into the November election, they began to pass a slew of controversial rules on things like election certification that got so much national media attention as people started to worry that maybe election results wouldn't get certified on time because of some of these rules. The courts had to step in. There were these lengthy court battles. In the end, everything went smoothly. But this was one story that I really did not have on my radar until these election board meetings really started to heat up at the beginning of this year. Now, the other story I want to mention that really took off pretty much as soon as this year began back in January. And those were those bombshell allegations of misconduct lodged by one of the defendants in the Georgia election interference case against Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. In January, defendant Michael Roman, through court filings, accused DA Willis of having a personal relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. This resulted in months of court back and forth, this kind of stunning testimony where Willis actually took the stand in Judge McAfee's courtroom to defend herself. The case has basically been halted as a result of it.
And Sam, before I get to my story, as we are taping this podcast, we have news on that story.
Yeah, just as we sat down to tape, Raul, the Georgia Court of Appeals ruled that DA Fani Willis should actually be removed from the Georgia election interference case. However, I should say that the court declined to dismiss the case itself. The 3-judge panel here reversed a trial court ruling from Judge Scott McAfee earlier this year that allowed Willis to stay on the case if that special prosecutor Nathan Wade resigned, which he did. But now the appeals court, in a 2-1 decision, says Willis should be disqualified, and so should her office. The appeals court majority concluded that Willis's personal relationship with a special prosecutor created an appearance of impropriety that required her removal. This decision came from 2 appointees of former Governor Nathan Deal. There was 1 dissent, and that dissent was from an appointee of Governor Brian Kemp. Now, Brendan Raoul, this decision will likely be appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court, so this isn't quite over yet. And if the state high court takes up this case and then also upholds this ruling, removing Willis, it will then fall to the head of a Georgia Prosecutors Council to appoint a replacement. Still, this means more delays. The Georgia case represents the last remaining criminal charges against Trump. And while he's unlikely to face trial until 2029, if at all, his 14 remaining co-defendants could go before a judge next year. But this decision makes it seem like it might be even longer before that happens. So that's a lot from me. Raul, talk to me about your sleeper story that surprised you this year.
Sam, you may remember the story of people who've been wrongfully convicted of crimes, served years in prison, and that the process in the state of Georgia is a piece of legislation that gives money to compensate for those people's years in prison, years lost behind bars. And the ones from this year didn't make it through the legislature. It became an intense political debate. And it's something I'm going to be watching again for next year of, is there going to be a formal process rather than Georgia's process for years where, a number's thrown out to the legislature and lawmakers sign off. And generally in the past, they've always signed off, but they didn't this year.
Yeah, Raul, what was it like to talk to those guys? I know you spent several moments in between legislative action talking to them in the hallways as they, lobbied for this legislation. I wonder how that stuck with you over the course of this year.
It was a roller coaster. It was, because I was there for multiple days. This was not a one-day story, Sam. And I think obviously the emotion of what these folks were going through. But the lawmakers who were also pushing for this, they were on a roller coaster. And I think that one of the lasting images, obviously, are the people who were affected, the people who spent years, when they tell you their stories of, I always thought I'd be exonerated, and then they are. Those are powerful stories. But, that last night of the legislature, I saw one of those lawmakers hours after the session. I want to say at 1:30 or 2 in the morning. And just that lawmaker, one of those lawmakers was just despondent, just like, how did this happen? How could this possibly have happened? So, that roller coaster, Sam, is what I'm going to remember. And then those final moments when they realized it wasn't going to happen.
All right, moving on to the next question. What moment from this past year do you think will end up having the biggest impact on Georgia politics in 2025?
So my answer is not just looking ahead to 2025, but also 2026. And that is the attempts to patch up the relationship between President-elect Donald Trump and Governor Brian Kemp, and what could be the implications in 2025 and 2026. Just a reminder, Governor Kemp cannot run for re-election in 2026. So, what is the governor going to be thinking about? Is he possibly thinking about a run for U.S. Senate in 2026 against Jon Ossoff, who will be up for re-election? Or is the governor thinking about 2028 possibly running for president? All of that, is affected, A, by the election of Donald Trump, but B, the attempts at patching up the relationship, and how much was that relationship really patched up, or was it just political pragmatism?
Yeah, Raul, I know you were with the governor and the now president-elect when they did that famous handshake in Augusta, the symbolic moment of their relationship being patched up. And then later, I spent some time on the campaign trail with Kemp, not campaigning expressly for Trump, but against Harris and for some of the Republican state legislative candidates in swing districts in Metro Atlanta. And so it was certainly interesting to watch that dynamic unfold over the course of this year.
What about you, Sam?
So again, I want to pick two moments. One would be the Atlanta debate between Trump and President Joe Biden. This was such a marquee moment in the life of the 2024 presidential campaign. It happened right here in Atlanta, and it really kicked off a lot of the events that shaped the rest of this year, from Biden dropping out to Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris becoming the Democratic nominee, to ultimately Trump retaking the White House in November with the help of Georgia's votes. So I think that was a really key moment. And then a smaller one, but I think one that might have legs in 2025, is the Atlanta water crisis. This was one that was not on my bingo card starting the year, but if our listeners remember, there were several water main breaks across the city. Large swaths of Atlanta were without water for several days. Mayor Andre Dickens was out of town at the beginning of this, and there was a lot of criticism over his administration's communication with residents in this time. And Atlanta mayor is on the ballot in 2025. I will be really interested to see if that controversy sticks in voters' minds headed into next year.
All right. And are there any big storylines that you two are planning to keep a close eye on in the new year?
Are there any big storylines?
Too many to count.
Raul.
Why don't you go? You go first, Sam.
So I guess one, maybe this is obvious, but I'm interested to keep tabs on how policies of the incoming Trump administration play out on the ground here in Georgia. You know, during a new administration, there's, for good reason, so much focused on how policy decisions are being made in Washington, D.C., whether it's executive orders out of the White House or legislation passing Congress, but really the effects of these policies, how they trickle down to communities and individuals, really is seen most closely in the states by politics reporters like us. So I'll be watching, for example, how Trump's promised crackdown on immigration plays out in Georgia, where we have a huge agricultural industry that relies on immigrant labor. I'll be interested to see how changes from the Department of Health and Human Services trickle down to the Atlanta-based CDC and the many Georgia-based employees of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So I think this will, of course, be a huge storyline out of Washington, but one that we're going to be keeping really close tabs on in Georgia as well.
So I'm actually thinking about the elections that we have in 2025 and that the issues that surround those races. And you already mentioned one of them, obviously, Atlanta mayor, and, you know, all the questions around housing, public safety, other important issues that fall under the mayor's purview. Obviously, what was happening with water and sewer. So the issues that fall under the mayor's race, and I think an important reminder that our audience needs to know about, we're going to have some statewide races in 2025 because there were some court challenges to how Georgia elects its Public Service Commission members. And so now that that's been all straightened out, those people are going to be on the ballot this year. We're going to have the expectation is we're going to have 2 Public Service Commission races, and they're the people who oversee important utilities like Georgia Power. There's so many questions under that, whether it's environmental concerns, the use of nuclear power, how much Plant Vogtle costed out in East Georgia, the use of power by data centers. That is a conversation I'm hearing more and more, even going back a couple of weeks ago in Athens for the biennium with Georgia lawmakers, conversations about these data centers are important. We need them, but they use a lot of power and a lot of water. And I think those issues also come up in those Public Service Commission elections. So next year's elections and what falls under them is probably a storyline I'm not hearing much now, but I think will come up more later in the year.
Love a good off-year election. They say it's off-year, but really these issues matter in a lot of ways to communities here in Georgia. So certainly something to keep tabs on.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any individual people that you two are excited to follow in the coming year?
Maybe more interested than excited, but yes.
I want to see what Senator Jon Ossoff does this year. Kind of going back to this idea that he's going to have to run for re-election in 2026 and will likely face a pretty strong Republican opponent, whoever that ends up being. We've kind of seen, some of those conversations already, him speaking out about the Democratic Party chairwoman, Nikema Williams, for example. To me, that kind of played into that equation of what he does for reelection. So watching political positions and other things that Jon Ossoff does as senator, he's somebody I'm going to be watching for this year.
Okay, I would have said Ossoff too, so I'll tag on to that. I'll tag on to that to say, like you mentioned earlier, we'll of course be watching Governor Brian Kemp as he either prepares for a Senate run, potentially president in 2028. But to throw out a few other names that I'll be keeping tabs on, there's going to be a really probably contentious GOP primary for Georgia governor in 2026. So some figures that I'll be watching include Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Attorney General Chris Carr, who has already declared that he's planning to get in that race for governor. So a lot of moves to be watching within the Georgia Republican Party as people jockey for higher office headed into 2026. And I hate to even mention 2026 because we're barely done with 2024. We still have 2025 to get through first. But these kind of conversations happen fast and furious. So I imagine it won't be long before we're parsing candidates for governor. And really, there is no standard bearer for the Democrats. We'll be waiting to see if Stacey Abrams wants to put her hat back in the ring, or maybe there's another up-and-comer who wants to take on this fight for the very much rebuilding Democratic Party of Georgia.
Okay, so if you two had to sum up the 2024 news cycle in one word, what would it be? I know mine would be exhausting, and I wasn't even doing all the on-the-ground reporting that you two were doing, and I'm still feeling exhausted.
All of our chaotic podcast tapings were probably enough to give you minor heart attacks.
Raul, you want to start?
Yeah, give me 1 second because I'm using the dictionary online to see if I can use.
I'm not kidding. Say, are you in the thesaurus?
Okay, I've got it. No. I had to check if this word was 2 words or not. Okay, because you said 1 word. So, jam-packed. That's the word I'd used. Is the number of times, because I have a running calendar on my computer, and then it just felt jam-packed. Like as someone who's covered Georgia politics for a long time, I remember a time when we would have, 2 or 3 important events a week. We were having 2 or 3 events a day. We were having to make decisions on what to cover, what not to cover, what candidate to cover. There was a time where you would never miss a presidential or vice presidential candidate visit. Sam, you remember we had to pick and choose. So my word would be jam-packed.
Okay, so I think throughout this year, I've been saying unprecedented would be my word. Our Closer Look host, Rose Scott, has asked this question before, and I think I've used the word unprecedented. But I think it's a little hard to say unprecedented despite all of the very unprecedented actions like the assassination attempt, candidate dropping out, because in the end, Donald Trump is headed back to the White House. So the word I'm going to use instead is unrelenting. And this nods at, Raul, your answer of jam-packed. And to illustrate this, I wanted to pull up a post on X from just one day in this campaign cycle, September 30th, 2024. And I listed some of the stories in Georgia news in just that one day. Hurricane recovery from Hurricane Helene. Kemp was touring areas affected by damage. We had a visit from Trump. We had a ruling striking down Georgia's restrictive abortion law. There was a chemical fire at the biolab. There was a boil water advisory in effect for parts of the metro area. There was a new lawsuit related to the Georgia State Election Board. And it was the day before Jimmy Carter turned 100. That's like 5 or 6 things that all happened in one day. And actually, if you look at the responses to my tweet, people came up with more that I hadn't hadn't even thought of in the moment. So this was quite a crazy day, but there were a lot of days like this over the course of this campaign, hence my word, unrelenting.
And you know what? It reminds me of what happened that week, because then I did do the coverage of Jimmy Carter's birthday party the next day. Vice President Harris came that week to see hurricane damage, and I traveled with her. And then former President Trump came, and I traveled with him to see hurricane damage. And that was all in that 1 week. Sam, that's a great word.
I got to say, there were so many moments this year, Raul, where I know people say, and it sounds kind of high and mighty, like the role of the journalist is to write the first rough draft of history, or you get a front row seat to history. But there were literally so many moments this year when that felt really, really true, and made me feel grateful to be able to do this work right here in our Atlanta community.
And, as we wrap up, I do want to say another person I'm absolutely grateful for, who's right now here on the show, is Brendan. Brendan, you've done amazing work on the podcast this year. The fact that you're able to do what you do allows us to keep working in the field. We're not spending a day working on this podcast, and it sounds amazing every single week.
Thank you so much, Brendan. We couldn't do this without you, and we're excited to keep doing it in 2025 if you're ready.
I don't know if I'm ready yet. I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks off, but yeah, thank you for the kind words. And I just want to say, I think those last two answers you both gave really illustrate how hard your job is and how much work you both put in. And I think this community is really lucky to have the two of you. So I want to thank you both for all the hard work you've done. And once I've recovered from this exhausting, jam-packed, and unrelenting year, I'll be ready to get started next year, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great words to wrap up this segment with. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to welcome two other people that have been critical to our podcast, and we're going to test their knowledge in the year in politics. This is Plugged In, a WABE Politics podcast. Welcome back to Plugged In, a WABE Politics podcast.
We're going to wrap up this year with something fun, Plugged In Game Show Edition. You may know that we host politics trivia nights twice a year. Well, today we're going to bring that spirit to the podcast and test our editor's knowledge of the biggest stories of 2024.
So let's welcome our fantastic editors, WABE Managing Editor Alex Helmick and Deputy Managing Editor Molly Samuel. Welcome to both of you.
Hey, guys.
Hi, thank you.
All right, so you're each going to be directed to answer a specific question about a news story that happened in each month of the year. Each correct answer is worth 1 point. You have one phone a friend. WABE digital editor Patrick Saunders is at the ready if you need to phone him for help. And we invite our listeners to play along at home. Are you guys ready to do this?
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so this first question is for Alex. Let's begin in January. After an attempt to allocate public funds for private school tuition in 2023, during the 2024 legislative session that began in January, Republicans tried again. Ultimately, their efforts succeeded. How much are the vouchers per student?
Raul, I believe the vouchers are $6,500 per student.
And that's correct.
Hey, ding, 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 ding.
Yay. Boo.
All right, Molly, let's move along into February. This is a story that we worked on together, so I hope you remember this answer. Which former Georgia governor testified on Fani Willis's behalf at her misconduct hearings in February?
I have no idea. Who can remember February?
You want to take a guess? Go through your Rolodex of Georgia governors.
Okay. Who would have?
Can I steal it?
I don't.
Can you steal it?
Yeah, let Alex take a whack. I'm just going to start naming governors, which you probably... Was it Zell Miller? I don't know.
No.
Alex for the steal?
I think it was Roy Barnes. No?
Roy Eugene Barnes.
Ding, 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 ding.
Royeugene. Barnes, Barnes.
So that was former Governor Roy Barnes getting sworn in to testify in Judge McAfee's courtroom back in February. Alex got the steal there. Raul, you have the next question for Alex.
from the month of March. How did Governor Kemp say he voted in the March GOP primary of this year? And it's a multiple choice. Choice A, blank ballot. Choice B, Nikki Haley. Choice C, Donald Trump. Choice D, Roden Johnny Isaacson.
I think I'm going to go with he left it blank. I think he did leave it blank.
In the Georgia primary, I didn't vote for anybody. I voted, but I didn't vote for anybody.
All right, another point for Alex. Good job. This is now a question from Molly, and we are in the month of April. Molly, what's the name of the Emory University president who came under fire for his handling of campus protests over the Israel-Hamas war?
You guys, I have no idea.
Alex, do you want to steal?
I don't know.
Wait, Fenves?
Coming up on today's program, a student referendum on Emory University's president, Greg Fenves, has resulted in a no-confidence decision. 3/4 of those who cast a ballot voted for Fenves to step down.
Good job,
Okay, good
Molly.
job, Molly, at the last second.
Yeah, close one. I was going to get a no-confidence vote if I couldn't get any of these.
Alex, let's move to the month of May, and this one may be a tough one. May even up the score here. Remembering the Atlanta water crisis, Alex, what city was Mayor Andre Dickens in as the water crisis first unfolded? A, Memphis, B, New York City, C, Birmingham, D, Las Vegas.
Let me see, Ro. I'm not sure. Well, I think I'm just probably going to have to take a guess at New York.
May I answer this one?
Your guess, Molly?
Memphis.
Were you in Memphis Friday night for a fundraising event?
I was in Memphis. Yes, I've said it. I was in Memphis on Friday. Friday afternoon, Friday.
When did you get back in Atlanta?
1 p.m. on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. It was Memphis, and that is TV reporter Pat Quinn asking Dickens about this outside a press conference when he did finally return to Atlanta. All right, now we are moving on to June.
Congratulations, Molly. I will say congratulations. You have made it a little closer. You stole one back. Fair enough.
You've evened the tide there. All right, we're now moving on to June, and this is going to be a question for both of you. All right, so you're going to put these 2024 events in chronological order. One of them happened in the month of June. All right. A, Biden and Trump debate in Atlanta. B, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade resigns from the Trump case. C, the biolab fire in Rockdale County. And D, the state election board passes rules on election certification. So put A, B, C, and D in chronological order. All right, let us know when you're ready.
I think I'm ready.
Molly?
Yeah.
All right, Alex, you want to go first?
So I think you said we needed to focus on, you mentioned June. Something happened in June. I know Trump
One of these events was in June.
Biden and Trump debated in June. I remember that. I think before then, Wade resigned earlier in the year. I don't remember the month. I don't know when. I think it was before June. And then I would say, so I think it would go Wade resigns, Biden debate, then biolab and election, or maybe election and biolab. Let me do that. Wade resigns, Biden debate, election laws, and biolab.
All right, that's your final answer?
Yes.
All right, Molly, how about you?
I did Wade resigns, election certification rules, debate, fire. So I did BDAC.
Following some breaking news this hour, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis can stay on the Georgia election interference case against former President Donald Trump if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade steps down. For 90 minutes, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump laid out their respective visions for the next 4 years. This was the first, and it could be the only debate
of the 2024 presidential election.
A new rule in Georgia could allow some local election boards to refuse to certify results. It's raising concerns ahead of November's crucial elections.
Emergency management is warning Atlanta residents that westward winds could push the plume of smoke from the BioLab fire in Conyers toward the metro area Wednesday night.
All right, so I think Alex gets the points there.
Hey.
Congratulations. Nice job, Alex.
Good job, Alex.
Bro, we'll take us to July.
And I should point out real quick before I get to July, Molly, I missed this question too when Sam threw it at me. So I got it out of order too. So
All right, that makes me feel a little better.
hopefully just a little, not a lot.
It's like a very, very small amount, yeah.
But you have a redemption moment now in the month of July, halfway
Cool.
through the year.
Great.
So here we go. This question is for Molly. Which of the following is not a provision of a new Georgia housing law that took effect July 1st? A, caps security deposit for renters at 2 times monthly rent. B, mandates habitable conditions. C, provides a 3-day cushion to pay rent after a late notice. D, loosens zoning rules with the aim of making housing more affordable. Which of those is not a provision of what was called House Bill 404?
I'm going to go zoning rules because that's usually local.
And that's correct, Molly.
All right.
Very impressive. That was very good.
Beginning of Molly's redemption arc. All right, heading into August.
Me and the Falcons both.
All right, heading into August now. This is a question for Alex. Alex, the state election board began passing a series of controversial rules. The board's nonpartisan chair, John Verveer, is an executive at what company?
I think I know this one.
Also, remember, you have a phone a friend if you need to use it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Alex, call Patrick. Patrick's definitely going to know this.
Let's call Patrick.
All right, we have WABE digital editor Patrick Saunders, who is here to provide a little bit of rescue to Alex. Patrick, are you ready for your question?
I'm all set. Is there a time limit, Sam?
Alex, do you remember it enough to ask it to Patrick?
The state elections board head is an executive at, I thought it was like some sort of, it's something like it's not Coca-Cola or Chick-fil-A or something like it, but something like that. Maybe it's Chick-fil-A.
Really to not come through for my managing editor right now. Had no idea how much pressure this would be, you people. Honestly, I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, man.
Sam, I'm going to go with Chick-fil-A on this one.
Unfortunately, the answer is not Chick-fil-A, but Atlanta-based Waffle House.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
I was close.
Patrick, thank you for your service. We may need you again, so
or maybe
hang
not
by your phone.
Or yeah. Not sure I'm going to dip into that well.
Well, anytime I could come in and just save any of my fellow colleagues, I am here for you. All right. Bye, El.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick, for nothing.
Let's move to the month of September. And Molly, what Georgia metro area did both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris visit after Hurricane Helene swept across the state in September?
I'm going to go Augusta.
I am here in Augusta to thank all of the folks who are here on the ground doing this extraordinary work.
We're here to express our support, our love, and our prayers.
And that's right, Molly. And as you may remember, I made my way out to Augusta to see both of them come visit after Hurricane Helene came through the state of Georgia.
All right, the score is now tied as we head into October. This is a question for Alex. Alex, October saw a lot of celebrity visits to the Georgia campaign trail. Which celebrity did not campaign with the Harris Walls campaign in Georgia this year? A, Bruce Springsteen. B, Julia Roberts. C, Usher. D, Lil Jon. Or E, Bon Jovi. Which one did not campaign with the Harris-Walz campaign in Georgia this year?
Well, I know Roberts was here. She was with Stacey Abrams. I know Bon Jovi did some work with them, with the campaign. Lil Jon, of course, was at the was there at the convention. I guess I got to go with Springsteen. I don't remember Springsteen. I know I'm sure he endorsed her, but I don't remember. I know he's a big Democrat, but I don't remember. Maybe he did campaign with her. In Georgia. I don't know. I'm going to go Springsteen.
I don't know how long they're expecting me to talk. I would do it all over again, but it did take me 10 hours to get here.
The icon, Usher. Let me make certain that I'm talking to all my AT aliens out here. We ready?
Mister, I ain't a boy, no, I'm a man, and I believe in the promised land. Living on a prayer.
All right, so the correct answer would have been D, Lil Jon, because he did not campaign in Georgia for Harris-Walz. He was at the DNC in Chicago.
Yeah, I was holding my tongue here because, Alex, you actually answered it. You said he was at the convention. So
that's so dirty. He came out representing Georgia. I protest. I'm launching an official protest of that question.
Brendan, let's hear a little bit of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president. 5 July, another round of shots. DNC, turn out for what?
So that's Lil Jon there at the DNC in Chicago.
Scandalous question. Scandalous.
You know, every trivia we do, there are always people. I mean, you guys know you're the scorekeepers that come up and complain. So do you want to be one of those people?
I've turned into one of them.
So let's move to the month of November, election month. Question for Molly. Former President Jimmy Carter cast an absentee ballot in the November election from his home in Plains. What county election office received that ballot?
So what county is Plains in?
Yes, basically, that's the question.
Okay, well, how much time do we have? Because there's, 159 counties. I know it's not one of the Atlanta ones. I don't know. There's so many counties. There's so many counties. Is this a good one to call Patrick on? I guess I should call Patrick because I'm not going to have another chance. Yeah. Let's phone a friend. He really helped out Alex last time, so I'm feeling good about Patrick. My trash talking is all for Patrick, unfortunately.
Oh my God.
All right. Patrick, are you there?
I am.
All right. Molly, go for it.
Okay, Patrick. You're my friend that I've phoned. The question is about Jimmy Carter voting, but what it comes down to is what county is Plains in?
Okay. Plains. So
oh my God.
What did you have were you trying to decide between any, or was it just like total blank?
Well, I had eliminated Cobb, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Fulton.
Also, Patrick, you should know the score is tied, so a lot is riding on this.
Yeah, this is kind of all riding on this, on you knowing if you can just name the correct.
So what you're saying
South
is
Georgia county.
This is a tie game. There are 159 counties in Georgia. And you want me to tell you where Plains is? Okay.
Yeah, you're my Hail Mary here.
This is going to be all right. I don't know why, but I want to say Toombs.
Unfortunately, it is not Toombs.
Plains, Georgia is made home in Sumter County, Georgia.
Sumter.
I would never would have gotten there.
Yeah, Toombs County is the home of Vidalia.
And not too
clear
far.
on the other side of the state.
It is clear on the other side of the state.
If you had read a recent Carter biography, you would have known that Jimmy Carter began his political career on the Sumter County School Board.
Yeah, okay.
Patrick, thanks for nothing.
I improved this time. I had a guess, So, I'm gonna take the W. All right.
We're moving into the final question. We've made it to December and the end of 2024. The score is tied at 4-4. This final question is for both of you as we look ahead to 2025, and it is a matching round. Several Georgia Republicans who have faced some form of defeat in Georgia politics have been resurrected into the incoming Trump administration. Match the Georgian with the top position in the Trump administration that they have been tapped for. You may want to use your paper and pen here to help you keep stuff straight.
I'm ready for this. My short-term memory is actually going to be okay for this one.
So here, let me start with the names. Here are the names. The first name, letter A, Kelly Loeffler. B, Bill White. C, Doug Collins. D, David Perdue. And E, Herschel Walker. So do you got all those names, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, now here's what you're going to be matching them with. Here are the titles. Number 1, Ambassador to Belgium. Number 2, Ambassador to China. Number 3, the Administrator of the Small Business Administration. Number 4, Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And number 5, Ambassador to the Bahamas.
I got him.
Yeah, I got it too.
So, Sam, they're ready to go.
All right, Kelly Loeffler. Alex, who's she going to be?
Small Business Administration.
Molly?
Yes. SBA.
You are correct. All right, Bill White, who was in charge of the Buckhead cityhood movement. Where's he headed?
Belgium.
Molly?
Yep. I wrote that story this week.
Correct. All right, former Congressman Doug Collins.
Veterans Affairs.
I got that too.
Correct. Former Georgia GOP Senator David Perdue.
China.
Molly?
Yep, I got that one too.
Correct. Lastly, in the news this week, where is former Georgia GOP Senate candidate Herschel Walker potentially headed to?
The Bahamas.
Yep, I got that too.
All right, 100%. That means we are still tied 5-5. Alex, 5 points, Molly, 5 points. So we're going to pull out a bonus question here to see if we can break that tie. Whoever can answer this question first will win. Here we go. Which celebrity did not campaign with Trump in Georgia this year? A, Jason Aldean. B, Kid Rock. C, Danica Patrick. D, Tucker Carlson. Or E, Charlie Kirk. Ready, set, go.
I'm going to say Danica Patrick. I don't remember that one.
Molly?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, Alex is wrong, so the score is still tied. Then.
Okay, so I could guess. I'll go Kid Rock.
Kid Rock is correct. The Michigander was not here in Georgia. So we've had Molly come from behind for the win in the final overtime round. Congrats to Molly. Thank you both for playing.
I just want to protest this question as well. It was, again, the tricky wording from Sam Greenglass tried to confuse me. I'm protesting. I'm taking it up to a higher level.
I'll see you in court, Helmick.
Oh, goodness. You know what, Alex and Molly? Thank you for A, joining us. B, I mean, you guys were really great sports about it. I mean, we really appreciate it. This was so much fun. And thank you for all the support you give us throughout the year on our podcast.
Keep up the great work, guys. It was a pleasure and an honor to be on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Molly, you can lord this over Alex for the coming weeks. That is it.
I will be gloating. This is the only win I can look forward to this year as we enter the Penix era. So I'm just going to take this.
That's it for this final 2024 edition of Plugged In, a WABE Politics podcast. We are thankful for our editors and all our WABE team members who've shared the reporting on the podcast this year.
A reminder to stay with Plugged In as we get going with the 2025 Georgia General Assembly. If you've been a fan of the Gold Dome Scramble podcast in years past, all of that in-depth reporting on the legislature will happen here on Plugged In. We're off for the next 2 weeks, and then a new season of Plugged In begins Friday, January 10th.
If you appreciate the reporting you hear on this podcast, you can help fuel our work with a donation this holiday season to WABE. 90% of our funding comes from right here in Metro Atlanta. We rely on listeners like you to help fund critical reporting on public policy and politics.
During this giving season, support Plugged In and other WABE programming you enjoy by going to wabe.org/donate. Thanks for listening.